Hi there, my name is Andrew McElrath. I'm a certified biofield tuner. And I wanted to offer a process to introduce liberation into the experience of slavery of humanity. And I know that that holds a huge charge energetically and emotionally for a lot of people. And I feel like it's really important to explore that with a sense of openness and clarity to address the layers and levels that that's playing out on our planet and as a species and our relationship with the planet itself. Biofield tuning works with tuning forks on the body and the electromagnetic field that surround it. And it can also be used to introduce coherence into intentions and projects. So for this session, I'm going to be using this beautiful piece of obsidian as a placeholder, and we will be exploring the 4 quadrants that go around in a circle, the underneath side and then the top side as well. And while we're tuning an experience or an intention, sometimes people can have sensations in their bodies. And so I'm going to go over a couple details or a few details that are important to address, because while this is working on the subtle energetic body of the collective, sometimes people can have sensations that show up. So I want to make sure that we address all of those as if we were tuning you in your body. As we do this, you're going to want to take full, deep breaths. And if you want to imagine that as you're exhaling, those are going out of the base of your spine and the bottom of your feet. I'm going to invite everyone to notice what shows up without holding judgment around that. Just sort of notice what shows up. And if you want to process it later, you can certainly do that. This is working through the intention of the sound in the forks rather than the sound itself. So if you need to adjust the volume of the device that you're listening this, I'm going to invite you to do that. If you need to get up at any time to go use the restroom, go ahead and take care of yourself. You can come back and re-enter the process at any time. I'm going to be doing this with the intention that everyone, whoever listens to it, is included. So you can be listening to this months, years later, and you're included energetically in this process as we do it. I'm going to be working with the collective signal, and to whatever degree you feel emotions or sensations that show up for you individually, that's perfect. Just kind of go with what shows up for you. And in general, we ask that if you are pregnant, or have a pacemaker, or are diagnosed with any advanced disease, including cancer, that you do not listen to this recording, because we don't want to create any circumstances for someone to have detox in a way or have physical results or experiences related to the tuning, because it can be potent in some ways. Full list of contraindications are included on biofieldtuning.com. And please don't listen to this if you're operating heavy machinery or driving. Please do that later. After the fact, self-care is highly recommended for this process. So you're going to want to drink lots of water, maybe during or after. Consider taking a salt bath, an Epsom salt bath, to sort of allow for your system to reset after this. I'm going to approach this with a lot of openness and curiosity. And as I said before, this is an intense experience, and there may be lots of different information. So we're just going to see what shows up. I want to invite everyone to be really comfortable as you listen to this and be really open as much as possible. So thanks so much for showing up for the work. I'm going to go ahead and place the intention of introducing liberation into the experience of slavery within humanity. And we're going to go ahead and place that intention. And I understand that everyone may have their own filter or perception around what that is, and I'm going to invite you to have that. I don't need to be overly directive about how you interpret or experience this. I'm just going to see what shows up in a place of openness, okay? So here we go. I'm going to do the 4 quadrants. So I'm not going to really move this lovely piece of obsidian but I am going to do so with intention, if that makes sense. So the first spot that I'm going to work with would be the east side. And again, I don't place any meaning on it. We just are going to see what shows up here, okay? You're going to hear me breathe a lot, okay? So if you're noticing you're holding your breath, you might take that as a cue to, let yourself inhale and exhale. So here we go, folks. All right. So the first impression of what I'm picking up on the side is profound fatigue and exhaustion. And you could imagine that this is an expression of physical exhaustion, but also emotional exhaustion. Yeah. A feeling as if the work that's been assigned is never ending and will not come to an end. So I'm going to invite everyone to breathe. And there's also a level of hopelessness. So I'm going to invite everyone to tap into the awareness that change is inevitable in this experience. And to trust that there are big cycles that are moving through. So if you want to imagine that even if you have, what shows up is the relationship between humans and farming or agricultural products or mining, okay? And I'm going to invite everyone to breathe and trust that the natural cycles of our planet ultimately will shift and create some space. And I'm feeling in here that there's some ancestral information around, I'm just going to use the word that drops in, praying for some kind of disaster to break that pattern up. Okay, so that sounds kind of dramatic. And when faced with that sense of hopelessness, I think it's understandable how one would want or invite some dramatic global shift to introduce the potential for liberation in there. And I'm also noticing that some energy in the heart just sort of settled a little bit. So if you're noticing anything in your body, I'm going to invite you to become aware of that. If you're not, that's okay. So that just dropped down into profound rest. And I'm just going to invite everyone that it's okay to take a break in whatever way. I know, depending on what your situation is in the world right now, you may have been forced to take a break. And just to acknowledge that there might be some opportunity in there. I'm going to go in here with a 528 and just kind of move through this a little bit and introduce some peace into this story a little bit, right? I'm also hearing in here that our planet is very honest. She doesn't know how to lie. She can't lie. She always tells the truth. I'm noticing some shifting, moving around. It feels like some pressure in my ears is moving around. So if that's showing up for you in any way, great. If not, no worries. There we go. Nice. Okay, so when we tune projects or intentions, the way that at least I work with this is that I'll drop this into the center here. And that feels like it's settled down a lot. Again, it just feels like a super long break is in order. And the feeling of not having to work every day of the week. I mean, there's a story here, folks, of no break. All right? None. And we're all ready for a break. There we go. All right, folks, so I'm going to drop this in to the center. I'm noticing as this goes into the center, there's some, it almost shows up as arthritis or inflammation in the hands. Maybe where our ancestors had worked so hard with their hands that they had some chronic injuries showing up there. And I want to witness for you that your hands are yours, your body is yours. It does not belong to anyone else. That you are the gatekeeper for your own power, and you're sovereign in your own power. And that you're safe in your power. There you go. Keep breathing, folks. And if you're getting any awareness or images as we do this, great. Be mindful of them. That's really important information coming in for you. And I'm also noticing as this drops in, there's different types of fatigue, right? There's fatigue because you've had so much fun, and then there's fatigue because you've been working so hard, and maybe on the hamster wheel of activity. So there we go. Let's try to make some space so that the fatigue that we feel collectively is more from a place of, work's great. We want to have maybe a little bit more balance. Certainly working every day of the calendar week that we've identified in the Western paradigm is a bit much. That's not a humane space. There we go. Nice. Ooh. All right. That's feeling good. I'm going to shift this to the south side. So this is now south. Nice big deep breath. Whoa, big huge anger. Wow, rage, frustration. Oof. Oof. Nice big deep breath, folks. I'm hearing generational rage, okay? And that is all understandable. I'm hearing, and I, this is probably a very general response, but I'm hearing burn it all down. I'm hearing here that this is related to a pattern of self-destruction when you don't feel like you are sovereign and that your people, however you define that, are sovereign, that you claim what you can in that space to retain your power, and if you do not have a space of escape, if you will, then that's the ultimate form of protest, is you burn it down and or you self-destruct, because then you find liberation in spirit. So, that's heavy. Let's go in with 144. Folks, you do not need to self-destruct, okay? Hopefully there are other options for us in this experience. And however you perceive, this word's heavy, your master or who is over you, that there's space for you to be creative in how you shift that power dynamic, okay? I understand how for some of our ancestors that was their choice, and some of us still replicate that behavior now in some form or another, but that we can be creative and work with our own frequency and energy to shift that into a state of coherence and liberation, right? Because there are parts of this, I'm in here with a Lumerian, we're just going to really open this up. I can feel there's a self-replicating pattern, right? So if the pattern of slavery or domination is been experienced on multi-generational levels, and you could argue that to some degree all participants in this experience of being human on this planet have had episodes of receiving that or participating in the experience of being dominated or manipulated or dehumanized, that we reflect that pattern onto one another. So let's breathe into that. I'm going to invite everyone to imagine that there's a collective signal, a collective place that we connect. There we go. And that in that collective space, that we don't need to replicate that structure of hierarchy or domination to be okay. That we can rewrite the origin signal of that. And, when I say that, I know that there are lots of theories around how humanity was introduced to that paradigm. And some of those theories go very far back, beyond what's traditionally taught of our own history. So I'm going to invite that to go all the way back. So I'm just noticing, to the degree that our DNA holds memory, that there's some part of this that's unwinding in here. So I'm going to actually go in here with a 528 and a crystal, and I'm going to invite you to notice what's showing up. We're going to rewrite this, folks. Oof. All right, so I just noticed something moved in my eyes a little bit. And folks, if you need to wiggle around or move around, do that. And if you need to make noise, do that too. There you go. All right, so I'm just noticing sometimes ancestral energy can show up. So I'm just noticing here a feeling or an awareness that some of the intention that had maybe pulled our ancestors through this experience was the prompt. Well, I don't want to say promise or hope, but the potential, right? Their descendants could be free. Yeah. So if you are inclined to do so, I'm going to invite you to have gratitude of the wherewithal that your ancestors had, the fortitude that they had. So that has a nice big charge. There we go. And migration comes up here as well. Having to trust that there's another space on the planet that has the potential to support people in thriving. Feeling a lot of space open up in my crown. So regardless, I'm going to invite everyone to notice what's showing up in your body here, because there's information for you around that. There we go. So I'm going to start to drop this in. And I'm just really noticing here that this is the conversion of that. We started out with anger, and it feels like this has shifted into sort of gratitude, awareness, and to me, forgiveness isn't necessarily acknowledging that what has gone on is okay, or with integrity and compassion. But forgiveness creates space to end the cycle of suffering. And I think that's important to become aware. So let's kind of see if you can allow or become aware that anger can shift into forgiveness and release. And maybe one of the only ways we can really move through into forgiveness is by the acknowledgement of the emotion. So anywhere where emotion has been unacknowledged, where truth has been unacknowledged, let's create some space for that to show up. There we go. Folks, you're doing great. This is super heavy. This stuff is super, super heavy. So I just want to acknowledge and thank everyone for showing up and hanging tight for this. There we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to shift the intention over to the west side here, and we'll see what's going on over here. Excuse me. If you're noticing that you're yawning or burping or releasing of any kind, that's okay. It just means energy is moving through. All right. So I'm noticing here on the west side is there's almost like many threads, if you will, or elements that are woven in or braided in. It's sort of the vast network of this pattern or story. And I'm noticing that this has that's been normalized, and that there's some challenge around what happens if those structures of domination, power, exploitation are not present. And who are you and what are you if you're truly liberated? And I'm going to really invite everyone to notice, and we're going to go in here with 144, and I'm going to use 89 directly on the stone here, to notice how you have felt manipulated, controlled, how your power has been, how you believe the story that you're not powerful. Notice what shows up for you. Notice what shows up in your body around that, or what comes to mind. Because in my experience, on a very fundamental level, we've bought this story or belief that we're not empowered individually and collectively. And I mean that from within, not over. Not that there's only a limited amount of personal power and that by someone else claiming it, it's taking away from yours. Yeah. What also is showing up is the experience of power, the power struggle around sexuality and the story that's encoded in there, the patterns around physical reproduction, all kinds of control mechanisms that we play out in that experience. So I'm going to invite everyone to be sovereign in their own body, and to engage their own liberation. Liberation with integrity, right? Because there's a difference between being very self-serving in that, I'm being liberated, get out of my way, versus I'm choosing this, I'm aware that this is an important part of my process, and I'm self-contained in that way, and I'm not overstepping anyone's boundaries in that process. And I'm just here to invite everyone to know that you belong here. And when I mean here on the planet. There we go. All right, so there's this feeling of being ostracized, being left out, this story of always needing to have a scapegoat. Let's really see if we can unwind that. How I call this is kind of a blame game. I think there's a part of our consciousness on this planet that has a story that someone is always left out, right? And we all pay the price for that. So at least that invitation is there, right? And anywhere that you felt ostracized or separated, let's create some space for you to be included. And really key into that you belong here, in your body, on this planet, at this time. There you go. And that you have space to be heard. There we go. You folks are doing really great as we do this. Let's see. Alright, we're going to slowly drop this in here. See what shows up. Alright, so as I'm dropping this in, I'm really aware of this scarcity model. Alright, it's mine. Mine. Okay. So sometimes we need to claim stuff to feel validated or empowered or grounded, safe maybe. But I'm going to invite everyone to notice where that claiming or ownership is maybe so far out of balance that it's a little off the charts. It's, I don't want to call it pathologized, but that it's maybe not super supportive and functional for everyone's well-being, okay? Yeah, that humans are not objects. Objects are objects. And even then, when we look at objects, to perceive plants and animals and the stones that make up this earth, to really be mindful that they're living, sentient, energetic beings. Okay? That mine is a real... a real objectified way to perceive things. That in some ways that we're all infinitely connected. So let's see, we're going to do a 528 right on this stone. There we go. And I'm going to invite everyone to be aware that you're borrowing your molecules from the next adventure. You're simply on the ride of all these elements interacting with water in your body. And when you leave the vessel that's your body, that those compounds will be recycled back into new creations and new manifestations of consciousness. So we're really all in a state of being, borrowing, there we go, and being borrowed. And in some way that pressure and intensity kind of lifts when you see it in that way, that you're kind of in flux. There you go. Make peace with that sense of flow. Oh, you guys are doing so great. I can feel how that shifted. Great. All right. We're going to move on over to the north side and see what's going on in this last quadrant. Okay, so this is sort of what drops in is, it's interesting, the word that drops in is penance and grace. So that's kind of interesting. What also comes to mind is a feeling of taking inventory on everywhere in our collective and personal lives where these patterns of separateness, detachment have created very big patterns and ways of being. So I'm going to invite everyone to create some space in your awareness of what it looks like to be integrated energetically, so that anywhere where you're treated as an object or you're treating someone else as an object shifts, that you acknowledge the consciousness that's in everything and everyone. And I'm even getting here that this is a signal or an awareness that comes all the way from the stars through our body into the earth. That this process of liberation has big impacts in ways we may not fully understand right now. It's really interesting. Also, what drops in is liberating the stars. Interesting. So, in any way that you can perceive or open to us being part of a galactic community, I'm going to invite that experience of liberation to go all the way up and down from the stars into the earth. Whew. So that's kind of emotional and big. There we go. Yeah, to invite cosmic grace. That's a great combination of words. Cosmic grace. There we go. All right, folks. So this is feeling a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and drop this in. And if there's a story that's running in your lineage around holding on to resentment as an identifier, I'm going to invite everyone to just notice that and become aware that there's a choice in there. There's an option. Resentment is probably the opposite of liberation, okay? Or something to work through, okay? That even though you may be released from the chains that have bound you, that you may still be playing that out and suffering. So to just create some space to let that release. There you go. Excuse me. There we go. Wow. Excuse me, folks. This happens sometimes in tuning. There we go. All right. That sounds great. I'm going to flip the holographic intention of this on the bottom side. Okay, so we'll see what's underneath and then on top here. All right, so what shows up for me on this is everything that's hidden. I'm just seeing everyone has glasses on or filters on. And I'm noticing this feels like blind spots. So I'm going to go in here with 528 and a Lumerian, and we're just going to just open this up so that those blind spots can be cleared up. And anything that's being hidden from our vision can clear up as well. Right? Because if we can see things really clearly that are playing out or that are in place, then we can really know what's going on. But without that awareness, you're kind of feeling your way in the dark or working in a place of assumption or presumption. There's so much moving around in the third eye and the crown as we do this, folks. I'm really fascinated how much is moving around up there. So anywhere where you're able to invite a pathway for clarity in your life, or make space to, it's like when you clean off the windows and it changes your perspective. The light is able to show up. It's that aha moment, right? There we go. There you go. I'm hearing that it's like the clearing out the debris field. There we go. Okay, folks, so I'm going to open this up and connect this down below. Here we go. I'm going to go in here with a 144. It just is some of this, some of the distortions of perception have been here for so long. There's so many of these are being lifted and have been in the process of being lifted and will continue to be lifted. There we go. So what I'm doing right now is moving this through. A fellow teacher called this the rocket technique. in the column. So when we tune, and there's a lot of resistance in, there you go, the space for a body or an intention to connect externally. There we go. Nice. Aw. Oh, that's great. All right, we're going to flip the intention to the top side to connect up. All right. Folks, we have so much support on all the different realms and dimensions and ways of being. Like, I'm really going to invite you, when you're feeling overwhelmed, and I think this has probably been a strategy for a lot of people on the planet, a lot of groups and cultures, to connect to source and the non-physical, however you identify that. Okay, asking for help is, I think, how we have gotten through the experience of being human in the context that we've had for a while. So here we go. Okay, we're just going to clear this up just a wee bit. All right, folks, science and spirit do not need to be in conflict. There we go. That they can hang out together, all right? That's two ways of knowing, and that they can make peace with one another. Because there's a little, like, back and forth in this connection up there of, that you have to deny one or the other to be true in your knowing. And I'm going to invite everyone to hang out in both spaces as much as you're open to it. There you go. Okay, that's great. All right, folks, so I'm going to take a 528, and how I work with this to get this integrated is we're going to do a figure 8 going from north to south, east to west. I'll do that 3 times in each direction, and then I'll connect this to source and then bring it back down into the earth. So, north to south. East to west. There we go. Now we're going to connect this to source. And then I'm going to ground this back down into the earth for you. There we go. There you go. Nice. You know what I noticed in that, folks, is that a lot of you have been doing a lot of work on yourselves, and that was really noticeable. I was really happy to notice how much moved as easily as it did for as heavy and intense that it is. We are continuing this wild ride on planet Earth, and I just want to acknowledge that you folks are taking care of yourself, it feels like, and adjusted to a shifting landscape, and to just really be gracious with yourself and one another, and to know that there's space for us to engage our own sense of liberation and integrity in the way that we express our energy, and show up for ourselves and our world. And that, that thing that came in the very beginning of feeling into the changes that are coming as an expression of liberation, even though they might be really intense and transformative. So sending everyone lots of love and lots of light, and thank you for showing up for yourself and for the planet, and you take great care. Okay, bye-bye.